To newly qualified midwives and student midwives who have got families, please drop in the comments below your support and the tips that you would give to someone else who wants to study midwifery, who has a family and who is a little bit concerned about how they're going to juggle that work-life balance with becoming a student midwife. As a starting point, I want to just signpost you to a fantastic Facebook support page called The Secret Community for Midwives in the Making. It's a fantastic resource to be able to join and learn more about what the reality is like of being a student midwife. There's obviously a financial aspect to consider. There will be certain things you may be eligible, things like bursaries, loans for example, and it's also worth balancing, are you going to be eligible for any childcare support too? And it can be incredibly challenging to be a student midwife. Depending on the university you go to will depend on what the setup of that course looks like. For example, some universities do it so that you are in placement for half the week and then you're in university for half the week. It's a 50-50 course in itself, so you have half theory and half on-the-job training. It's also the longest running university course at 45 weeks. That means only 7 weeks off a year. Sometimes these will tie in with school holidays, sometimes these will not. And in order to qualify, you do have to reach the minimum amount of placement hours. So you have to have been on placement over those 3 years, for example, the minimum amount to qualify. There isn't much wriggle room, particularly if you've got children who are sick or you yourself are sick at any point. There's very little wriggle room in relation to the hours. There are also different routes into becoming a student midwife. So there is the apprenticeship scheme. Now this is fantastic, and this is personally what I think it should always have been. You are provided a salary to become a midwife. Over that training, it's the same university course, so you still do the same university hours, you still do the same placement, but you are paid a salary so that you have the financial stability throughout your training. You also don't have any course fees at the end of it, which means you're with significantly less debt compared to those who go down the university route. With the university route, you apply to university and you get in through university, but there isn't a salary for your training purposes. There are, however, maintenance loans and grants and things like that. And as for shift work, it's incredibly challenging. When you are in a unit, like delivery suite for example, you will be expected to work whatever their pattern of work is. That might be earlies, lates, that might be twilights for example, that might be night shifts, that might be day shifts. And usually only the students with additional medical needs that cannot work night shifts that have been signed and cleared by occupational health through their university are the ones who can't do the night shifts. And when you're in community, that will be working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Now, every single university also has to offer student midwives a stint in a different hospital now as part of that 3-year placement. And that's to ensure that students get a variety of different units, different practices, and also different cultures around maternity services. The whole idea is to reduce the whole, well, we've always done it this way, so we're always going to do it this way type culture, because by moving students into different units, they start to understand different practice and how different units work. And for some students, that might mean additional travel time on top of the community hours that they may be doing or on top of what they are doing within the units. Now, those who are employed and have an employment contract are entitled to request flexible working. However, the university route, you are not technically employed. You are not employed from a contractual arrangement. Therefore, flexible working is a little bit more challenging. It tends to be more on being able to make contact with whoever does the rostering of student midwives in the first place and trying to put forward the things that you really need either off or the days that you can or can't work. It can be really challenging though, because if you've got, say, 50 students all out in placement at once in different areas, the person who is doing the rostering needs to make sure that you don't have shifts where you've got 8 students on a shift where none of you are going to catch any babies, or where you've got no students on another shift, for example. Also ensuring that those students are put with people who will teach them and educate them, who are practice assessors. It's not supportive nor fair for newly qualified midwives to be looking after a student as well as learning the ropes themselves as a newly qualified midwife. And senior midwives who might have a preceptor midwife working with them on a supernumerary period also can't have a student that same shift. And so it's a juggling act, and it isn't always easy, and sometimes it does take that negotiation, that really early organisation, that really early communication with the people who will be running your placements, for example. Get as much information as you can ahead of time. Go along to the universities and ask them what is available in your local trusts as well. It's more than possible. I've known so many midwives who have had families who have managed to juggle it. Often it's when they've got a really good family support structure or a really good childcare infrastructure in place. If you've got that in place where your partner picks up, drops off, can be flexible around your needs, doesn't go away for months and months on end, for example, or you've got someone like a nanny, an au pair, for example, you've got a really good supportive childminder who can do that wraparound care, who can be able to be flexible around your shift patterns and your needs and your university placement times, it will be far easier. However, it is and can be a challenge for those who have got young children who are student midwives. And so for those with very little or minimal support in place, often they have waited until their children are a little bit older where they can juggle it a little bit easier. If you do decide to go for it, good luck.